Welcome back, Petapixel viewers. It is Chris Nichols here, and as you can see, it is a yucky, windy, wet day. Semi-trailers are blowing over on the highway and stuff. It's like crazy wet. And we're going to get inside because today we are playing with the new Fujifilm X-T50. Now, this is a pre-production model, but we have a lot to talk about here. We will do a full review when we can. Let's get inside because these are not weather sealed. Now, the Fujifilm X-T50 is of course carrying along Fujifilm's long-standing tradition of making their cameras stylish based off of retro-inspired designs. And if you are looking for your own classic retro-inspired used camera, why not go to KH.com? That's our choice for used gear. First off, you know that you're dealing with a reputable dealer. You're not meeting up with some private person in, I don't know, an abandoned mall like this or some shady parking lot exchanging cash. You know that you're going to be backed by a 21-day return policy, very generous, and a 180-day warranty. So you know you're going to get that peace of mind if you're going to purchase a camera. And of course, if you want to get some cash, you can also send in your used gear to KH.com. They're going to evaluate it fairly. You know you're going to get a good price for it, and again, without the hassle. Or even get their e-gift cards. That way you can give the gift of a used camera to somebody that you love. Regardless, KH.com is the way to go for used gear. That's why they're Petapixel's official pre-owned camera gear partner. Click that link in the description below to find out more. And now let's get back to the Fujifilm X-T50. So people are referring to the X-T50 as a baby X-T5 or an X-T5 Lite, and that's because we have the same 40 megapixel sensor in this body, which makes it a very good photocentric camera. We're now also, for the first time in an X-T double-digit camera, getting IBIS rated to 7 stops. That's a huge advantage because any of the more basic lenses that often don't have OIS on this body will now still have stabilization, so that's really handy. Now, where the X-T50 can't quite compete with the X-T5 is really going to come down to burst shooting speeds. I mean, the X-T5 had a crazy fast mechanical shutter rate of 15 frames per second with autofocus, whereas the X-T50 can do still a fairly respectable 8 frames per second, but it's almost half of what the X-T5 can do. When it comes to electronic shutter mode, though, they're actually quite similar. I mean, they can both shoot up to 13 frames per second with autofocus and no crop, and then they can go up to 20 frames per second with a crop if you're okay with that. But really, it's that mechanical burst rate where it's going to be a big difference. Now, the first thing I noticed about the body is it's actually quite a departure in styling. I think it's a good one. I mean, the X-T10, 20, 30 version 2, these were all fairly blocky, square-looking cameras, and this now has a very rounded design. I mean, you can see how it slopes here, lots of contouring on the sides, even the bottom with this very rounded shape. It also has a nice grip. It's a little bit larger than what you'll normally find on an X-T, and it's actually really comfortable. You know, the quick button here is out in a place here where it won't get hit accidentally, and it gives you a really nice grip on your thumb. Overall, I also really like where the command dials sit. There's this notch now cut out in this contour, and it really is a natural place for your finger to fall and be able to manipulate the dial very easily. We're not really sacrificing any manual controls, even though this is quite a bit smaller and lighter than an X-T5. The weight, by the way, is going to be 438 grams. That's with the card and battery in there, so it is very easy to carry around. And as I've already mentioned, it's not weather sealed in any way like the X-T5 would be. But you do get dual command dials here with push-in function for multiple controls, so you actually have a lot of control there. I like the exposure comp dial. I'm happy that we still have that there. So you have a retro-inspired shutter speed dial, which we've seen many times before, and like a lot of the other X-T10, 20, 30 cameras, you have this auto switch. You can flick it and then it puts it into full auto easy mode. Now, another feature that seems to be more aimed at the beginner user is this dial here on the far left, which is dedicated now to Fujifilm film simulation modes. These give you different colors or black and white modes for your JPEGs. More advanced photographers might have wished that this was customizable, but it is designed just for the film simulation modes. I do also get 3 customizable options. So FS1, 2, and 3, I can set those up for other film simulation modes that I like to use on a regular basis. I also really like the UI for this. As I'm flicking through the dial, you actually see the film canister from the actual original film. That's really cool, as well as nice documentation reminding you of not only what film simulation mode you're using, but for the black and white modes if you've used a yellow, green, or red filter and applied that. Otherwise, under this dial, we've got our little pop-up flash release because yes, this is an X-T50 camera, and these cameras often have pop-up flashes. So let's talk about displays next here. I'm going to start with the back panel, 1.84 million dot, 3-inch touchscreen panel, really nice interface. It does only articulate on one axis though, so you can do waist level shooting or above a crowd, but you don't get the advanced feature like the XT5 with that pullout if you want to do low to the ground vertical shots. That's unfortunate, but that's something we've seen in all the XT double-digit cameras. But next, let's talk about the EVF, which is a little bit disappointing. We are still stuck here, 2.36 million dots. Now you can boost it to 100 frame per second refresh rate, which does help if you're in performance mode to do things like kids sports, wildlife, action, that kind of thing. But otherwise, I really wish the resolution was higher. So I imagine that a lot of users out there are going to buy the XT50 body only because they're just upgrading to the new sensor and they've already got existing glass. But if you want to get this as a kit, you can get this both with the 15 to 45 kit lens, which I do feel might struggle to fully give you the benefits of this 40 megapixel sensor, but is absolutely dirt cheap. Or more likely, the brand new 16 to 50 f2.8 to 4.8 kit lens. This would make a lot of sense. It's absolutely going to handle that resolution. In fact, we have a video review of that coming out shortly. You'll definitely want to check that out as well. In fact, this month has been crazy. There's so many videos coming out that if for some crazy reason you haven't subscribed yet, this is the time to do it. If you can get us up to 200,000 before June 1st, time's running out, we will do some crazy stuff by eating our least favorite foods on camera. It's going to be great. You wouldn't want to miss it. So make that happen. In the bottom of the camera, we're still seeing the Fujifilm NP-W126S battery. We've seen these before. Absolutely all the XT double-digit cameras seem to use them. So you probably have some if you're upgrading. That's nice. You're gonna get just under 400 shots CIPA rated. If you're using the economy mode, I always shoot Fujifilm cameras in performance boost mode though. So you're gonna lose maybe 10 to 50%. Again, remember that CIPA rating doesn't mean that much. This is pretty standard, pretty sort of par for the course for cameras at this price point. We still have a single SD card slot, but it is UHS 2-speed card slot. That should help us deal with those larger 40 megapixel sensor files. Now, despite the fact that we have some unique control structures here on the top of the camera that are different from what we've seen before, a lot of it's the same as cameras like the XT30. I like that we still have the autofocusing joystick as an alternative to go through the menus or move our autofocusing point. And again, on these cameras, a lot will be dedicated to this drive button over here where you get all of your features like HDR shooting, panoramic shooting, all your burst rates, and as well, buried at the very bottom, movie mode. Is this camera a movie-centric camera? Let's go to Jordan and find out.
Well, here I stand in front of a closed Cineplex Odeon. This is one of my favorite theaters in the city, definitely the best curated of the Cineplex Odeon, with the ominously blinking red sign that says that's all for XT50. Okay, this camera is actually a little bit better equipped for video performance than some of the earlier ones in the XT double-digit line, largely because they've ditched that annoying 2.5 millimeter mic jack. We've got a standard 3.5 in this. So you got the USB port for fast charging, but also you can use a USB-C to headphone adapter if you do want to monitor your audio coming out of it. We've also got a garbage micro HDMI port, but that's to be expected with the size of this camera. So what about the actual video quality? Well, I think the limiting factor here is the sensor that we've got. If you want to shoot full width 4K, you can do that up to 30 frames per second, but it is binned, so you're not getting the full resolution of the sensor. There is also an oversampled 4K mode, but unfortunately that uses the central 26 megapixel crop of the sensor that's also used for the 6K recording in this camera. So essentially, every record mode in it does have some drawbacks. I mean, certainly the inclusion of IBIS is going to be really nice for video shooters, but the truth is, if you're looking for a hybrid camera, the XS20 has a better form factor and a better sensor for that kind of capture, and that would be the way I'd go.
Okay, but where does the XT50 sit in the whole entire lineup? I mean, this is a very natural progression for this camera because now we're just getting the 40 megapixel sensor in here, and it's definitely a more photo-centric camera. I do like the new design changes, the new grip, and the Fujifilm simulation modes. Although it's aiming this camera at more beginners and people just getting into it, I still found that the camera had enough creative control and manual control to please me as well. You do have still the XT30 version 2. That's not going anywhere. That just gives you a very lightweight, affordable camera package with the 26 megapixel sensor, or if you want a more advanced camera that's a similar price to this but more suited for video applications with more of those advanced controls, you still have the Fujifilm XS20, which does a fantastic job. But I have to say that personally, I'm actually really drawn to this camera, not only because of the unique look of it, I really do like the way they designed it, but also the fact that I prefer as a photographer to have that 40 megapixel sensor with the IBIS built in. Those are really nice upgrades that you normally have to go to an XS series of camera or XT5 drive to get. So I think this actually has a lot of appeal just because of those 2 upgrades alone. I think a lot of people are going to enjoy it. Let us know in the comments below what you think about this camera. Remember, we will do a full review on this when we get a full production camera as well to really put it through its paces. But I hope you guys enjoyed this. Also check out the Petapixel podcast. You can find it on all your favorite podcasting apps, or you can watch it on our exact same channel here. We really appreciate if you join that. Thanks so much. We'll see you soon with more from Petapixel.